And this is the Temple of the Jade Serpent, which is in the first zone, the Jade Forest. It's another dungeon that goes indoor and outdoor. It's something we're trying to do with a lot of the dungeons, is to get a whole different vibe with players going both indoor and outdoor at different times. So not to be left out, we're also obviously going to be introducing new raids. We're looking at having 3 raids to launch with. The races we're looking to feature in these raids are the Mogu and the Mantid. As we talked about a little earlier, as kind of being 2 of our pillar enemy races to definitely fit well into the whole raid vibe as far as having creatures that you're going to want to kill. So as you know, we're introducing Raid Finder with 4.3 for the Dragon Soul raid. In Mists of Pandaria, Raid Finder is going to be available for all raids, right from day one. So all the raids are going to have essentially 3 difficulty levels of Raid Finder, Normal, and Heroic right off the bat. We think it's going to be great because it's going to give that other level for people that are looking to get into raiding a chance to do that with content that really fits for them. And like Tom mentioned earlier, we're looking to bring back world raid bosses. I think the big thing here is that obviously there were problems with them originally, but I think we've figured out solutions to those problems, to the fact of them staying camped, to the fact that they drop very specific pieces of gear that players need. We've got solutions to those problems, so why not bring them back? They were something that players really liked, so that's something we really want to do here for Mists of Pandaria. And like I said, we'll have a lot more info on this at the Raid and Dungeons panel later today. So, questing. What's going on with quests in the new game? A couple different things. One thing is we definitely want to focus on more max level content. It's something that we saw with Cataclysm, that people burned right through the content very quickly, and we saw that they really wanted more content to do at max level. So it's something we want to focus on here. We still obviously want a strong leveling experience along the way, but we want to make sure when you get there, you have a lot of stuff to do, and stuff that can give you Valor points that you can do at that level. So this is that kind of thing. We really want to focus on that. Things like the Molten Front from 4.2, we want to do things like that right from the beginning, so players have different choices when they hit level 90. So we're talking about having multiple hubs for that kind of stuff all over the world. Those will play into the factions as well, but it'll give players a different thing to do at max level and not just necessarily the same options that they've always had historically. Another thing that goes along with that is maybe giving some incentives to dungeon and our raid players for doing outdoor daily kind of stuff. So for example, say, if you did 5 daily quests, you would get a buff. And that buff, if you happen to go into a dungeon with that buff, you might get a chance to roll on a piece of loot that only shows up to the players that have that buff. So maybe you went out and did a few dailies first and then go and do the dungeon. It helps kind of motivate some play there from both sides. So like I was talking about a little earlier with Valley of the Four Winds, we're really looking to make the quests feel less linear. So not the fact that they're always going to feel completely different, but the fact that we give you some choices. So when you come back and you go through a zone, you can do it in a little bit of a different level. Same thing with flying from max level. We mentioned this earlier. It's just something that feels better to not have that. To keep people on their ground mounts, we can introduce different types of quest content that really fits. And we don't have to worry so much about people flying up in the air and landing on the boss mob to kill them right away without clearing anything along the way. It just really, I don't know, it doesn't have that good vibe to it. You didn't feel like you really did it. You kind of cheated a little bit and flew in. So by keeping people on the ground, it'll really feel better. Finally, faction improvements. Factions are something we've had in the game for a long time. We've done a number of different things with them. And here we're looking to shake it up again with offering players more ways to earn the items they want. So, whereas you look right now, we ended Cataclysm and we had Tol Barad, and we had a number of great items there, but it was kind of your only option of a place to go. We want to have more options for players to go, but still be able to use all those options towards getting the gear that they want. So we're looking at having groups of factions, and you can do any quest within these factions that you want, but they all lead towards that awesome, flying mount reward, or that one thing that you really want to get. So you don't feel like you have to grind so much. We want factions to be fun. We don't want them to feel grindy. And that's something we're really going to be focusing on here. So do we have a lot of PvPers here? Great. So we're talking about doing some new battlegrounds. We don't know exactly which of these battlegrounds we're going to do. These are all ideas that we're working on, but we figured it's BlizzCon, so we'll fill you guys in on the stuff we're thinking about, and we'll talk about a few of them. So we're looking at a couple different types of battlegrounds here with different gameplay styles. You know, obviously we've had CTF, and we've had kind of capture King of the Hill style games where you have to hold a certain area to earn points. So we're looking to do a couple different styles of battleground here. Another thing is we're looking to do a new arena. Right now we're calling it the Tolvir Proving Grounds, and this is located out in Old Doom. I'll have some screenshots to show you this in a little bit. So first, let's talk about the Stranglethorn Diamond Mine. The concept behind this is it's a goblin mine below northern Stranglethorn. Alliance and Horde are fighting over it to get these minerals out of it. And we're looking at doing a payload-style gameplay. So essentially, you'd have these mine cars that you have to escort to a depot. When it hits the depot, you get points. We're looking at multiple tracks within the actual mine itself, and the first team, essentially, to escort enough cars to the depots and get the points would win. But it would feel very varied with a lot of different options every time you play, because you could get a mine car and send it on a different track each time, and we're also talking about having you actually be able to, in the middle of the game, send the car off to a different track. A track could split, and a player could sit there and decide which way he wants it to go. So it's a unique kind of style of gameplay, something that we feel like could be really cool with WoW's PvP. So this is a look at a map of how that could work. There in the center where it says Diamond Mine would be where the carts start. And then there's a couple different tracks that lead all the way around the cave. And you can see some of the tracks split and go in different directions. There's some bridges there where when a track goes across a bridge, you know, you could knock guys off the bridge. There's all kinds of opportunities to do cool things here. Here's some concept art for this one. This is one we've definitely gotten a little bit of progress on, to the point where we've got some playable prototypes. So next up, there's one we're talking about called the Valley of Power. And this would be about getting an ancient Mogu artifact and capturing that artifact. And Alliance and Horde both want it because it would offer power for their war against the other side. Now, the way the gameplay would work is essentially you'd have an object. And you pick up the object, and the longer you hold it, your team earns points. Now, depending on where you stand in the area of the actual map, you could earn more or less points. So if you run off in the corner and hide, you're going to earn less. But if you stay out in the middle where it's wide open, you would earn more points. The ball itself would be doing damage to you, so the longer you hold it, you're taking more and more damage. So you'd need healers with you to keep you alive. But it's a really fun style of gameplay. It's something we think, again, would fit really, really well with WoW. So here's a look at how something like this could work. We'd have some start areas on the two sides. That's a ledge going all the way around. And then some stairs that lead down kind of into a recessed area. And the orb is right there in the center. So you'd start and run right through for it. We've got a couple simple pillars for line of sight, but really a simple map. For something like this, the gameplay is all about the combat. You don't really necessarily need a lot of line of sight blockers or things in the map to make it fun. And here's what I was talking about with the point values. You could see the farther away you are, the less points you would earn. Closer to the middle, the more you would get. The concept piece of where this could fit into the world. And finally, we've got Tolvir Proving Grounds. We haven't done a new arena in a long time, so we thought, you know, maybe it's time to add another one in. A lot of players are very happy with the arenas that we have now, so we've been tentative to add a new one. But this really felt like a cool opportunity to use a really neat piece of art and do an arena that could be simple and that players would really like. So we based it off Nagrand Arena, which is one of our most popular arenas. And it's got a great sense of place in the world because it feels like it could be in Old Doom. When you go there, you would know exactly that it fits. So here's a look at it from the top down. It's just a simple square with 4 line of sight blockers. They're kind of on angles a little bit, a little different than Nagrand. But the layout in general is very similar. And then here's a look at it from the side of how it could fit in Old Doom. So we have one other new feature we're talking about adding in, and Greg's going to tell you about it.
You guys still with us? Almost done. We're almost done.
We're getting close.
Go to the bathroom soon. Achievements. Let's do this. It's pretty much all we can say about it. We're going to take some of the achievements and let them be shared across all the characters you have, particularly things like the raid achievements and some of the ones that are more difficult to get. And then this will also give us the possibility to introduce some new types of achievements. So, for example, we could say, get every profession to max level, which would be really cruel to do for one character, but across your stable of characters would be kind of fun. So look for this soon. All right. Talk a little bit about some class changes coming up. I think most of these are pretty exciting. First one is a change we're going to try for resilience. We really like the way resilience works as a stat for PvP. We like the way that when you're hardcore at the very competitive levels, getting even a little bit more resilience can make a big difference. And we know that it gives you a good goal to work towards and makes the PvP gear rewarding. Our concern is that it's a big barrier of entry into battlegrounds or arena. There used to be a day when you could kind of come in your PvE gear and gradually work up to better PvP gear. Players have told us now they feel like they just can't compete in PvP at all because there's such a big step up. So the way we're going to try to do this is to treat resilience as a base stat, which means you'll get a little bit every time you level up. Even naked, your character will have some resilience. And then as you get PvP gear, you'll get up to the kind of resilience you have now. We don't want PvE gear to be the best gear for PvP, but we want it to be something you can use, and vice versa. All right. A few other things I'm going to talk about. The future of ranged weapons, warlocks, shaman, and druids. I can't talk about everyone, but we still love you. Just had to throw that out there. Okay, ranged weapons. Ooh. I'm just going to milk this for a second, so just... Okay, it's gone. So once we decided to make this change, then we're left with, what does the hunter do with their melee weapon? It's just a stat stick. So, hunters don't need melee weapons anymore. Just get your ranged weapon, you're good to go. And the funniest thing about this is we went really quick from everything is a hunter weapon to nothing is a hunter weapon. Okay, this leads to some other questions that I'll hit real quick. We don't think we even need a range slot for all of the other characters. I know, it's crazy. We think the relic slot is like one of the least interesting pieces of gear we can introduce. It's got some stats on it, but we don't drop them in dungeons and raids. You pretty much get your new one every tier and you're good to go. There's not a lot of gameplay there. Honestly, we don't think we'll really miss it. The rogue and warrior will just throw their melee weapons when they need to do ranged attacks. So that's what I mean here is literally the gun, bow, and crossbar hunter weapons, and the other classes don't ever want them. And then finally, we know some of you casters want to be Harry Potter. So rather than cutting the wand completely, we'll just make it a main hand weapon. So like you have your caster dagger, your spell sword, sometimes you'll get a wand. It'll be statted like the other items. You can use it in your main hand.